CEO for the West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, and we welcome you for joining us tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight's program is hosted by the League of Women's Voters of Los Angeles and NBC4 with support from the City of West Hollywood. We want to thank our partners that I just mentioned and how excited we are to see our evening unfold. It is our first virtual forum. We also want to thank our Political Action Committee, who in any election season has been hard at work, and our Board of Governors, and of course, our Board of Directors who leads the Chamber, particularly led by Nick Remedio. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce him to you now, our Chair of the West Hollywood Chamber, Nick Remedio.
Nick, you're muted. Nick.
Hello, Nick.
I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Hi, Nick. We can.
All right, great. Thank you, Genevieve, and welcome to the 2020 West Hollywood City Council Candidate Forum hosted by the West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles. I am Nick Remedio, General Manager of Lapeer Hotel and Chair of our West Hollywood Chamber. We thank you for attending tonight's virtual program. First for us and those of you watching live on Facebook, after the event, you'll be able to view the recording of this forum on multiple streaming platforms, including the Chamber's website at WehoChamber.com. Additional thanks and gratitude goes out to a number of great people that we're so excited to partner with. Our co-sponsor for tonight, the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles, Marilu Guevara, Executive Director for the League, and her team. Please give them a round of virtual applause. Our partner each year as our host and moderator, the great Robert Kovacic and the NBC SoCal team. And the City of West Hollywood's award-winning communications department led by Lisa Belsante and her team. And of course, our staff, Genevieve Morell, and our board of directors. Last, but of course not least, this would not be possible without the candidates themselves, all of whom have chosen to be here today, and we thank them for their commitment to West Hollywood. Before we turn the program over to the League and our amazing moderator, Robert Kovacic, I want to remind you all that it is simply not enough to have a forum to discuss our issues. We also have to vote. All elections are important, but this one is so critical as our very lives depend on it. So please get those neighbors out, get your friends out who are registered to vote, and come out on November 3rd and vote with us. Now it is with genuine respect, admiration that I not only thank, but introduce your host for tonight's program, Robert Kovacic. Robert has covered some of the most significant moments in history over the past decade, from the royal wedding between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to presidential debates and primaries and the Academy Awards. We are humbled by his service as a journalist and a friend, and his generosity to our community in hosting the West Hollywood Candidate Forum. We could not have a better person in the forefront of our election. It gives me great pleasure to introduce NBC social reporter and anchor Robert Kovacic.
Hello, Nick. Thank you. Thank you, candidates. First of all, thank you to the West Hollywood Chamber. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles. It is great to be back moderating this, and it is great to have candidates with us who are so passionate about the most progressive city in the country. And we are going to talk about the most progressive city in the country's future in the next couple of hours. And this is going to be a very engaging and enlightening debate for all of us. And we want to welcome our viewers that are here on Zoom, as well as those who are watching live on the League of Women Voters Facebook page. After this is over, candidates, remember your faces and your words will be available on a variety of streaming services. So for our audience and for our candidates, you will be able to rewatch this, and candidates will be able to ask your supporters or those who want to know more about you to go to those devices and see more, because this will then continue to live on. Nick made a very good point. The deadline to register to vote is coming up. It is Monday, October 19th. To register, we've got all the information at weho.org/elections, so please keep that in mind. What we're looking at here tonight is we have 9 candidates up for 2 seats in West Hollywood City Council for the terms commencing in 2021. Those seats will be voted on Election Day, Tuesday, November 3rd, where there are a couple of other issues and candidates on the ballot. My role, as it has been in the last couple of debates, is sometimes unpopular, and I've heard from many of you that, there are rules that need to be followed. I do not make the rules, everyone. I'm just asked to enforce them, and the people who make the rules are taskmasters. So I don't want to let them down. I don't want to let our audience down, and I'm going to ask you to play by our rules, and we're going to go over them. And audience, it's important that you listen to this as well, because you are going to be participating too. The audience can't see us, candidates, but the audience can see us, but we can't see the audience. So always keep that in mind. There is going to be a stop clock on your screen as we go over these questions. Please respect the stopwatch that you're going to see, and keep in mind that when it starts to tick down for the minutes that I will allot you, the seconds that I will allot you, that you are going to need to be respectful of that. There is not going to be any opening statements. So candidates, once again, you will not be given an opening statement, but I promise you, you are going to have plenty of time to make your case. These are questions that were selected by the Chamber and the League. You're all going to be given equal time to speak. For the prepared questions, you're going to have 45 seconds per answer. After we get through the prepared questions, audience, we are going to take your questions. Now you can ask your questions via the chat feature only if you're watching Zoom, and a representative from the League is joining us right now. We want to thank Mary Lou for being here. She's going to vet those questions to ensure that they're not redundant, that we haven't covered them before in the last hour and 45 minutes. And then she's going to give those questions to me. I will ask those questions at random to the candidates who wish to answer them, and candidates, that will be up to you. Very important here, guys and gals, to keep things fair and to keep things equitable. We're going to be doing a lot of jumping around, okay? And we're going to start and end with topics with different candidates. So they're going to be, the way we've done this is we've taken all 9 candidates and we have grouped you into groups of 3. Each group has been grouped in order of the election ballot, okay? And names chosen by the official county registrar. Worth repeating, these are names as they will appear on the election ballot. These were not picked by us or by the League. It's how they're going to appear when people head into the polls or when they cast their ballots by mail. When we finish, you will be given 2 minutes for a closing statement. And this is something that I want you to keep in mind. You may think that 45 seconds wasn't enough time to finish your answer to a question. Put it in the back of your mind, take some notes, and remember, you've got 2 minutes to compile all of your thoughts and to put them together at the very end, okay? And again, we so appreciate your participation. We think that you're really going to be engaged, and you're really going to not only have a good time making your case, but also listening to the cases made by the other candidates. We really need you to stick with the time. If someone or one of you mentions in your response a specific candidate, and again, this is a forum, not a debate, so we're not requesting you to do that. We're not requiring you to do that. But if it does happen, we will consider with the League getting in touch with me if we will have a response, and if the person that you are talking about is allowed to have a response, and if that response may be imminent, and will allow a 30-second rebuttal. But again, forum, not a debate. We don't have applause, so that's not going to interrupt us, and hopefully you won't take time to applaud yourselves. So we're not counting on interruptions from the audience, and we don't want interruptions from any of you as well. We want to be respectful. We've already warned the candidates, and we looked at your backgrounds. There's no signage, there's no placards, there's no election materials. That is absolutely verboten. We went over this one more time. Please stick to your allotted time slot. Please stick to the issues that we're talking about. There are a lot of issues that we're going to cover. We just want you to stick specifically to those. And again, the League is recording this right now. We're live on Zoom. We're live on Facebook. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we appreciate our audience participating. Candidates, you are not allowed to record this. There is no recording allowed, but it will live on streaming platforms after our forum. And remember, let's play fair. This is West Hollywood. We want to play nice with the other children. And with that said, I want to thank all of you for being here, all 9 candidates participating. Our election is now just weeks away, And we are going to begin. So audience, thank you for letting us describe our rules of engagement. And with that said, we will start with a question for all 9 candidates. Candidates, you will be given 1 minute each for this question. We are going to begin in this order, in order that you all appear on the ballot. So please keep in mind the stopwatch is going to start. I'm going to ask the question. This is the question. Larry Block, you are up first. Okay. The question, candidates, 1 minute each, and it's simple. Why should voters vote for you? Larry.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. People should vote for me because I represent an independent voice on the city council. We have a groupies of friends and cliques, and I'm an independent voice and a very resident-centric. I have not taken any money from developers or any money from unions, and I finance my whole campaign based on resident donations and my own investment in this city. I lived in the city for 30 years. I'm partially sighted. I'm a senior citizen. I'm not using this campaign as a stepping stone to anything else. I want to fix our problems. I'm a small business owner. COVID has affected our city so much. We need somebody who knows how to build something, somebody who signs the front of a paycheck, somebody who takes initiative, somebody who's done things from the public comment side of the podium. And we'll get to more of that later, of all the things that I've accomplished in the city from the other side of the podium.
Larry, thank you very much. We now move to John Erickson. John, 1 minute. Why should voters vote for you?
Thank you so much, Robert. Hello and welcome, everybody. It's great to be here with you all virtually, thanks to the Chamber. I'm running to bring a progressive voice to the West Hollywood City Council, one that's based on integrity, leadership, and bold ideas that will not only carry our council into the next generation, but make sure we're doing things to support our business community, our renters, those that live, work, and play here. I'm proud to say I worked at the city for 6 years. I was the president of the city's employees union. I'm endorsed by the employees at the city, as well as a host of Democratic club groups, labor groups, as well as the most commissioners and board members throughout the city are trusted messengers. We need progressive leadership on the council that's going to work every single day to make sure the needs of our residents, our businesses, and community members are taken seriously, and someone is there to answer the phone and do it. I'm going to be that person. I'm going to be that council member, and I'm going to get to work on behalf of all of you right away to protect renters, to make sure our businesses are taken care of, and to ultimately make sure that we have a voice on the council, one that is under the age of 40, to make sure that we're looking to the next generation and fighting for our future.
Thank you so much. Noemi Torres, 1 minute. Why should voters vote for you?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. I really appreciate you. I am running for West Hollywood City Council not only because I want to be the voice and the vessel for the community, but making sure that we are there for them, that we listen to them, that we don't assume what it is what their needs are, and be available to them. I have seen what's happened with COVID, and these are unprecedented times, and we do need someone that's going to have the stamina and the energy to be able to provide that, be able to be available to the LGBTQ community, keep moving forward the community, as well as the small businesses and the tenants, make sure that they stay at home. It is important that we also support the people that are unhoused, and that we're able to give them a safe haven for them to stay here in West Hollywood. We want to make sure that we are there for them, and I want to support via transparency and the integrity that I am able to and willing to bring to the City Council.
Noemi Torres, thank you so much. John Heilman, 1 minute. Why should voters vote for you?
Thank you, Robert. I think voters should vote for me because I have a long history of serving this community. I've helped establish our social services. I helped establish and drafted our rent control law. I have a history of working very closely and collaboratively with our business community. I think I have demonstrated over the many years I've served this community that I listen to people, that I try to forge consensus, that I try to make sure that we're looking out for the best interests of the entire community. I have a long track record of supporting affordable housing and advocating for affordable housing. I also have the support of a lot of organizations that I hope people in the community trust. The Los Angeles County Democratic Party has endorsed me, as has our city employees, as has CES, the Coalition for Economic Survival, the tenants organization, and that's why I think people should support me.
John Heilman, thank you. We move on to Seppi Shine. Seppi, why should people vote for you?
West Hollywood residents, I hope that you will vote for me because I am running to be an independent voice and an advocate for you. I'm not taking any developer money. I've been an LGBTQ civil rights advocate for over 20 years, and I will fight for our community and all of our communities and all of our people. I'm running a people power campaign, and I am here to be an independent voice, and I have business expertise. I own 2 small businesses, and in one of them as an attorney, I represent small to mid-sized businesses and have the expertise needed to help our businesses and our economic recovery. I'm a renter myself, and I will fight for renters. I fought for renters, and I will continue to fight for renters every single day and fight for all of you and lead with compassion for every single one of us.
Seppi, thank you. John Duran, 1 minute. Why should voters vote for you?
Thank you, Robert, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for putting this on today. I'm a native Angelino. I was born and raised there. I've been coming to West Hollywood since the mid-1970s, and I've watched the city change over almost 50 years. From what was once a blighted red light district without any economic base or ability to pay for social services, and I've watched it be transformed during my service on the council for the last 20 years into one of the most desirable places to live, work, and play in Southern California. What makes West Hollywood, West Hollywood? It's unique. It's unlike any of the other 87 cities in LA County. And I'm very protective of its brand. I'm very protective of historic Boys Town, of the incredible Sunset Strip, of Melrose, of all the iconic establishments that exist in the city. I could look forward to live anywhere in LA County, but I want to be here because of what we've created and what we've built. And I hope to serve the citizens for 4 more years. Thank you, Robert.
Jerome Cleary, 1 minute. Why should voters vote for you?
Thank you, Robert, and the Chamber and the League of Women Voters. It's a very good question. Why should people vote for me? I've lived here for 34 years. I have been a community advocate for many years. I am not taking any campaign money from developers, special interest, or attorneys. I'm spending less than $2,000 of my own money. And last time I ran was 15 years ago. And in the past 15 years, things have really changed. The residents are very unhappy. We have a lot of problems with crime. We have a lot of problems with the homeless. We have a lot of problems that have not been resolved. And at this point, with the incumbents being there 20 years and 36 years, the residents have told me they don't want to vote for the incumbents. They want new blood, new voices, new energy on our council. And that's why you should want to vote for me, because I've lived here so long. I was a 2 years on the Lesbian Gay Advisory Board. I'm really interested in changing the city and shaping it and making it better. And I'm the only residents first advocate. And because of that, that's why people should vote for me. Thank you.
We move on to Marco Colantonio. Marco, 1 minute. Why should voters vote for you? Gotta unmute, Marco.
I love West Hollywood. I define myself every day by service to my community. I am truly the only independent candidate, not currently a political appointee, although I have been. I have a history of speaking truth to power and proud of it. I launched WehoTimes and broke the story of Ed Buck and Jamel Moore when no one would speak of it. I'm a realtor. I have a 20-year history in hospitality, owned restaurants, developed an independent restaurant company. I think we need to find innovative ways to bring back West Hollywood. I respect our incumbents and everyone that's served on city council, but I think they're out of touch. I think we need new ideas, fresh voices, totally independent of developers and special interests.
Marco, you're muted again.
We need
And you're
to,
done. Okay.
we need to find ways to bring back, innovative new ways to bring back what it is that people love about West Hollywood.
Marco, thank you.
Thank you.
And we finish this question with Mark Farhad Yusupov. Mark, 1 minute. Why should voters vote for you?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for organizing this forum. So I've been resident of West Hollywood for 20 years. I live in a Norman Triangle. I have a condominium complex where I've been a leader for the last 20 years. People know me in the neighborhood. but I'm also on the Russian advisory board. So I'm very familiar with the east side of the city. So I think I am in a unique position to represent both the west and the east side. And there's a vast gap between those parts of the city, even though our city is quite small. I have a experience working with the residents to organize things on a local level, on a city level, and I'm not alienated with any other groups. I can be protected. I've worked with tenants, but I'm also a homeowner myself. So I think that's what the city needs. Someone can bridge those gaps. Our city is small. Someone who is not a professional politician like me, that's what our city needs. We don't need people influenced by outside interest. And I think we can make a great changes in our beautiful city if we have a person on a city council who has residents' interest first.
All right,
And
Mark,
I'm that
we're going
candidate.
to cut you off there because
Thank
you
you.
need to be respecting the timer. And candidates, you have been for the most part doing that, and thank you. Audience at home and that are watching on Facebook and Zoom, it's going to get interesting now. Candidates, 45 seconds for this next group of questions. We are going to tackle the subject of economic climate in the city of West Hollywood. Real quickly, here's how it's going to go. We're going to ask, again, we've divided you into 3 groups. We're going to ask group 1 this question first. We'll ask group 2 another question, and we'll ask group 3 then another question. We're going to begin with group 1. The question, again, 45 seconds for your answer. Please be aware of the timer that you see there up on the screen. Economic climate. First up, the economic fallout, and I should repeat before we start, this question is to be answered by Larry Block, John Erickson, and Noemi Torres in that order for this question. The economic fallout from COVID-19 is staggering. People are unemployed. They're having trouble paying their rent and their mortgage. Businesses have been forced to shut down or to operate with significant restrictions. What do you think West Hollywood has done right and wrong to cope with the COVID-19 economic crisis? And what more would you like to see done in the future? And you've got 45 seconds to answer all of that. We're going to begin. Larry Block, 45 seconds.
Hello, everybody. I own a small business in the heart of West Hollywood. I was the first one to call for masks for residents. The city council failed to provide masks for residents. It took them almost 6 months to provide guidelines for our residential buildings and our common areas, which they just approved at the last meeting. I advocated for that first. I advocate and have been advocating for outdoor zones for years and years for small business to move inside. The chamber and the city adopted that proposal. I've been working every single day since the pandemic, keeping my store alive and the pulse of the LGBT community in the heart of the city, while my neighbors are all struggling. And I've been working with my landlords, and trying to develop plans for the future for all of us to come back. And sorry, thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Larry. John Erickson, just to let our audience know the question again before you start, we're talking about the COVID economic crisis. We've got so much going on, so many businesses suffering, people are suffering. What's the city done right? What's it done wrong? And what more would you like to see done in the future? John Erickson, you have 45 seconds, and Noemi, you're up.
The thing that the city did right away is making sure that we were protecting people and keeping them safe in their homes. One thing that I applaud the city for taking quick action on is making sure we are protecting renters in every way, shape, and form, and also working to try to get ahead of whatever we could with our business community. Myself meeting with several businesses and learning the ways in which they could get further involved in the city was critical. We needed to, I think, look at how masks needed to be taken a little bit more seriously, but then the city went ahead and did that quicker than a lot of other cities were doing it. And then ultimately what we need to look towards in the future is how we're building coalitions with our business partners, with our renters, with homeowners, with everyone, to make sure that we're looking forward to getting our city and our businesses back. We got to slow the curve. We got to make sure our numbers are down, because that would not only bring back travel, tourism, and all the things that help make West Hollywood, West Hollywood.
Noemi.
Thank you. I think it's important that the economic fallout has been hurting from the small businesses, and I have been out and about speaking with them, making sure that we know what they're working on. I apologize because this dog is making noises, so I apologize. I believe that it's important for us to make sure that we know what the businesses are needing. I really applaud the city for what they did during the during the tenant moratorium, but we also needed to make sure that we know what's happening with all of our businesses. I applaud them because of what they did with the open restaurant, but we need to make sure that we're able to open safely as soon as possible. They need the businesses.
For our next group of candidates, and we remind our audience that we are asking this first question to the candidates in order that you will see their names on the ballot. This question will be for candidates Heilman, Shine, and Duran. The question with 45 seconds to answer is, commercial rents can be very high in West Hollywood, creating a barrier for small businesses and resulting in long-term vacancies of commercial space. What actions would you suggest addressing this issue? Would you consider vacancy taxes or incentive programs? John Heilman, 45 seconds.
Thank you for that question. I think vacancy taxes on commercial spaces is not a good idea. I think that ends up penalizing people, and we should be looking at incentivizing businesses to locate. One of the things that I have had some discussion about is the idea of creating areas where pop-up businesses can be located in some vacant spaces. That way the tenant doesn't have to have a long-term commitment. The landlord doesn't necessarily have a long-term commitment. And if the business works out, then it can remain as a long-term business. The other thing that we've already been doing is reducing some of the regulatory restrictions on businesses and frankly, addressing some of the parking shortages and allowing for shared parking.
Seppi Shine. Seppi, would you like me to repeat the question or are you ready to answer it?
I'm ready to answer. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. I think a vacancy tax by itself could be hurtful, but coupled with some creative solutions to make sure that when a vacancy tax is in place for a business that has been vacant for too long, for example, we have a lot of places in the east side that can use some sprucing up of businesses, that we're not having a lot of mom and pop shops, and I'd like the staff to come up with some. In addition, right now, businesses that are wanting to come into business aren't wanting huge spaces. We need to look at alternatives for smaller sized places, so smaller sized developments and stores, so that small businesses that don't need that much space can occupy and not have to pay so much rent.
John Duran.
Thank you, Robert. I think a vacancy tax is a really bad idea. And the reason it's a bad idea is it ends up incentivizing the wrong outcome. A vacancy tax means landlords rush out, get anybody to come in and fill a vacant spot. We don't need any more Starbucks. We don't need any more chain stores. We don't need any more CVS pharmacies in the city of West Hollywood. And that's what a vacancy tax does. It incentivizes filling a space quickly instead of thoughtfully. One of the things that's unique about West Hollywood is we have uniquely shaped businesses that help define the profile of the city's business community. So it does require thoughtful consideration. I think we're looking now at re-regulating properties to allow more live workspace so that people can not only work along commercial corridors, but live on the backside of those units as well. Thank you.
So this next question is for group 3, and they will go in this order: Jerome Cleary, Marco Colantonio, and then Mark Yosipov. You all will answer this question, please. 45 seconds. Small business is the backbone of our economy. Besides COVID, what do you see as the biggest obstacles for small businesses in West Hollywood currently? What does our city need to do to sustain a boutique, unique business community? Jerome Cleary, 45 seconds.
This is an excellent question. I know Larry Block's complained about his business dealing with the homeless, that he's had to deal with really extraordinary circumstances that damage his business. I think there's certain things we need to do for small businesses that really help them by maybe sponsoring them each week, have a different business sponsored through marketing, through the city, through the chamber, and highlighting them and offering discounts and coupons and stuff, and targeting each business and helping them along. I know certain small businesses, like Mickey's, they own their own building, and so does Trunks. I think certain businesses have been damaged during this time. The other thing to look in the future is, with that subway line, what's going to happen to all the small businesses while they're digging underground and the scaffolding's up again and there's stuff going on? I would be really concerned as we look towards the future. What are we going to do to help those businesses, maybe with a low interest loan or something to help them keep their business afloat? Thank you.
Marco Colantonio.
For existing businesses, exclusive, in addition to COVID, I guess that's the question. I think we need to consider extending the commercial rent moratorium to incentivize landlords to keep their tenants, to force landlords to negotiate with tenants. If you're a landlord looking at a 6-month or a year rent moratorium for a small business and you designate small businesses by sales, not number of employees, we need to force the landlords to negotiate and be a little bit more sympathetic. I also think we need to immediately organize a small business task force and bring in as many professionals and creative people in addition to the chamber, in addition to our city council.
Mark Farhad Yusupov. Mark, you good with the question? You need me to repeat it? You have 45 seconds.
I'm good with the question. So small businesses are backbone of our economy. And one of the things that we can do as a city to help them navigate the complex web of the financing, getting those grants from on the federal level or on the state level. That's what happened during the pandemic when some of the small businesses didn't have the accountants on staff or even knew how to navigate those loans that were available. That's one thing. Another thing is to incentivize property owners, commercial property owners, to create more small places so it's more affordable for small businesses to keep the rent. If there are more small places, the more businesses can be renting the place outside, and also maybe having some of the small businesses grouped together. If you have, like, for example, a row of artisanal cheese grocers, if the people know that entire block sells this particular produce, then that would be a great invite for people to go there. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates, we're going to end up this economic climate discussion with a question for all of you. It is 45 seconds. You certainly don't need to take all 45 seconds. It's a pretty straightforward question. We will ask the question and then I will give you the order how we're going to go. Would you support continued lane narrowing or closures to support outdoor operations for businesses in West Hollywood in the long term? John Heilman, 45 seconds, go.
Yes, I think we have discovered that this is working pretty well in most locations. There are a few locations that have created an impediment for pedestrians on the sidewalk, so we need to look at that. But I think this program has turned out to be very successful, and I think we should continue it.
Seppi Shine.
I think we need to ask our residents and our advisory boards and get real feedback from the community of the positives and negatives. But in essence, it has worked well and it is benefiting businesses. And certainly once the pandemic is over, it'll be nice to get some permit fees from them to continue.
John Duran.
Yes, yes, in part. I would say that the program works really well on the western end. But the center of the city requires a little bit more delicate care. And the reason is that there is not adequate parking for businesses between La Cienega and Fairfax. And if you know the way the city's made up, east of Fairfax is really a very linear part of the city, very narrow. But that center part of the city is very dense in residents and commercial business. And we may have to fine tune the issues of parking and traffic if and when we get post-pandemic.
Would you support continued lane narrowing closures to support outdoor operations for businesses in the long term? We continue to get answers with Jerome Cleary, 45 seconds.
Yes, I definitely support this. I think it's great. I think the visibility helps a lot. I think what happens is the people get to see that there's something vibrant going on in our city. I think also exploring other areas that aren't the main drags of our city to encourage it also and help business owners to develop that outdoor dining and the outdoor part that people want to see. I think it's a great idea and I support it. Thank you.
Marco Colantonio.
Oh, absolutely. And COVID is going to be around with us in the aftermath for a long time. So I support additional narrowing of streets. It creates more social distancing. I'd also suggest from the city maintaining and finding ways to celebrate its pride with producing street fairs. We're not producing pride. We're not investing money in a pride celebration. Closing Robertson and doing street fairs on Robertson, capitalizing on Melrose Place that has a worldwide reputation, doing events on the Sunset Strip, outdoor comedy performances, thinking outside of the box, and absolutely let's bring it out into the street. and keep it out of our businesses as much as possible. It's the healthiest, the most fun solution.
Mark Yusupov.
So our cities, even though it's small, I don't think the blanket one solution for the entire city can be made. I actually, on this one, I agree with Seppi Shine. We need to hear from residents. We need to hear from small businesses. One solution good somewhere else could be not perfect somewhere in other location. So it has to be based on a location. Some places it's working out great. Some places may not be suitable for that. So I would, again, get the feedback from the residents, local businesses, and then make decisions on case by case case. So I don't think there's a one good solution for the entire city on that.
The lane narrowing closures to support outdoor operations for our businesses in the long terms. Do you support this going on in the future? We continue with Larry Block, 45 seconds.
Hi, I am taking advantage of the outdoor space with my store. I do not support, once COVID ends, removing the parking spots from the street. As these businesses begin to get open, there'll be more traffic. So as an example, Fiesta Cantina on Santa Monica Boulevard has occupied the entire street. Well, when Mickey's opens back up or Revolver opens back up, that space is theirs too. So we cannot just give everybody that space forever. And so that doesn't work. I'm the only one with a commercial lease that actually understands what a commercial lease is all about. And to blame landlords or anything about the crisis that has been sort of mentioned, it's to work with the landlord in all these situations to move the city forward. I'm glad that I've worked out a deal through February with my landlord. Thank you. Sorry.
John Erickson.
Yes, absolutely. This is good innovation. This is exactly what our business community needs. I was at Pura Vida last week, actually enjoying our sidewalk and our cafe culture that we're seeing pop up. We need to make sure that we're doing all that we can as a city to remove this red tape. I would have loved to have seen it come out faster, but I haven't seen any other city outside of West Hollywood move as quickly. I thank our City Hall staff, especially, who worked overtime to make sure that they were pushing for these permits and all these changes to go up. It takes a great lift to make sure that everyone is not only safe, but also the people who live, work, and play and who are coming back to West Hollywood can take part in our businesses. So I absolutely support it, and I would look forward to supporting it in the future as well.
We'll finish this question with Noemi Torres.
Yes, thank you so much. I believe that it should be important for us. It has become such a magical thing to live outdoors and play outdoors. And it's been really great to see the community be together and enjoy that. I think it also could be case by case, just like Larry said, they may need some parking in those areas, but perhaps have the opportunity to see the side streets like Lapeer, the Lapeers of the world, and being able to have some sort of community outreach and have the dinners go outside, support each other. It has just made it a little bit different, and it has become such a great opportunity to know the restaurants in the area. So I support it.
Thank you so much. We are going to move on, and just as an aside here, from where I sit sequestered in the Brokaw News Center on the Universal Lot, you are all just doing a fantastic job and keeping us engaged and answering the questions and following the time clock. So thank you so much. I know those watching from Zoom and on Facebook Live certainly appreciate it as well. We're going to move on to another big topic in West Hollywood, of course, all across LA County, that being transportation. We're going to start with group two. Group two, this question is specifically for you, 45 seconds each. We will go in this order. Seppi, you will go first. John Duran, you will go second, and followed by John Heilman. Here's the question. We're heading into what could be a difficult economic period for local governments in LA County, Southern California, and of course, throughout the state of California. Do you support continuing to use city funds to try and accelerate the Crenshaw Line Northern Extension that is slated to run through West Hollywood? Seppi, could you begin?
Absolutely. The Northern Crenshaw Line extension will bring so much positivity to not only our city, but regionally. And it will be wonderful for working against our climate crisis. And the benefits far outweigh the economics. However, with that said, we need to come up with very creative solutions that will benefit us economically and not put us in such a huge burden as a city. And I look forward to supporting some creative solutions of how we could spend that money to make it quicker, happen faster.
John Duran.
Yes, absolutely. I have always voted in favor of extending the subway line into West Hollywood, but I want to add to that underground, under Santa Monica Boulevard, not at ground level, and supported stops at La Brea, Fairfax, and San Vicente. And the reason I bring up those three locations is that's where a lot of economic development can happen at subway stops. San Vicente is prime for development. We have a vacant bus lot there where we could create a civic theater for live performances, city government center, a park plaza, and a subway stop with housing on top of it, and make the southern part of Santa Monica Boulevard look like the northern part of Santa Monica Boulevard. I also want to say when the Biden administration takes over, January 21st, 2021, federal funding, make this all happen.
John Heilman.
I strongly support the city continuing to use city funds to expedite the northern extension of the Crenshaw line. This is something that I've been working on for many years. We finally got Metro to include us in the most recent tax measure. We've been working very carefully along with Mayor Horvath to get the support to get the Metro board to expedite this project. We are now at the stage where they have authorized an EIR for the project. And it's really important. This is really the time to do it. This is the time when we need to invest in our future. The Metro line will really not only help us economically, it'll help us with transportation. And as was already indicated, it'll help us environmentally.
This next question is for these specific candidates, and we will go in this order. Marco, you will go first. Mark, you will go second. And Jerome, you will go third. Gentlemen, here is your question. Of course, we all know this. Before COVID-19, traffic was a major concern in West Hollywood. We know that eventually, we don't know the time frame, but eventually economic activity is going to resume, hopefully in a robust fashion in West Hollywood, and we know that traffic will resume as well. What do you propose to be done to address traffic in West Hollywood? Marco, you're up. 45 seconds, please.
I truly believe traffic is part of life in Los Angeles. It's part of life in West Hollywood. More than traffic, addressing traffic, I'm more concerned about safety issues. It may not move traffic faster, but I think we have to reduce some of the speed limits in West Hollywood. I think all the side streets, not the main arteries, should have speed bumps. Safety is a much more important concern moving traffic through 1.9 miles. We're a pass-through city. There's always going to be traffic. And to be honest, I miss it. I look forward to more businesses opening, more activity in West Hollywood, and more traffic. It's not a major issue. Safety is the major issue for me.
Mark.
So I agree. The public safety when it comes to traffic is a big issue. So we do have to make sure that our smaller streets are protected from this traffic that goes through West Hollywood. That's unavoidable, but we have to direct it maybe to the main boulevard so the smaller streets can see a little bit of less traffic. So speed bumps there, safer crosswalks there. We need to make them more present in the city. We do have some safer crosswalks on Santa Monica. We don't have them enough on other streets. So eliminate the safe crosswalks. That would be one thing. As far as the traffic goes, the more we can incentivize our local people not to take cars when they don't have to. That would be a good step. A city bus line should have a direct line, shuttle between east and west parts of the city on the main boulevards, not a zigzag route. That will keep the people from taking their cars and just hopping on and off the buses. That would be another step. Thanks.
Jerome.
This is another great question. Traffic is always going to be a problem in our city. First thing is to synchronize all the lights and stay on top of it in a continuous manner, to also have more crosswalks, have flashing lights, to have most of our accidents happen because someone's doing something illegally illegal a lot, like they're running a stop sign or a red light, or they're speeding. There's been a lot of bad accidents up on Sunset near where I live, and also even recently on Larrabee and Cynthia. I'm concerned about those things. So I think we have to do outreach to neighborhood groups and Neighbor Watch to find out what their problems are and try to resolve those for traffic flow and circulation. Thanks.
And this question for this group regarding transportation, we will answer in this order. John, you'll be up first. Noemi, you'll be second. Larry, you will be third. And that would be John Erickson, by the way. The question is, we're going to talk about mobility options here, such as on-demand platforms. We've got e-scooters, we've got auto ride shares. What is your position on these mobility options? John Erickson, 45 seconds, please.
Micromobility is something that we need to look at and how we can be innovative as a city. If you remember on the city council agenda about a month ago, we were supposed to take this up. It got tabled. That is something I'm looking forward to looking into when I'm elected in November. Additionally, we need to look at how these micromobility issues impact traffic as a whole. We need to look at how these on-demand issues are impacting traffic, but making safe loading and unloading zones. But I'm a proponent of protected bike lanes and making sure people that utilize micromobility options are safe. I see people along Fountain Avenue on scooters as well as bikes, and they have gotten hit by cars in front of me. But this is also in our neighborhoods and across West Hollywood. So we need to do everything as a city to protect our residents through public safety, but making sure people that use these options are safe and can get from La Brea to Doheny in one piece.
Noemi.
Definitely one piece. We need the people there. I really would love to see the increase in bike lanes where there are non-existent. As a public facilities commissioner and my fellow commissioner Larry, we're working towards increasing the bike lanes when they're non-existent. I also want to make sure that we have the opportunity to look at out of the box ideas, to even look at side streets or being able to find a way for the bike lanes to exist, as well as perhaps have the opportunity to see if we're able to get scooters back on, but in a way that is going to be safe for the pedestrians as well as themselves. Just like John said, we want to make sure that they're not being hurt doing in Fountain. So there's creative ideas, and we have a lot of work to do on that.
Larry Brock, mobility options.
I'm going to try to address a couple of the questions you asked the other people. As far as the metro goes, I prefer the metro come to West Hollywood, but not through West Hollywood. Points at La Brea, down by Beverly, down by Cedars. We know that the metro is a place where homeless migrate. And if we are going to continue to put stops all through the city, we are going to enhance our homeless problems. With regards to the question of this ride share mobility, the number one issue on this issue is Prop 22. And the number of these candidates are against Prop 22. But if Uber and Lyft will pull out of West Hollywood like they did before, if we do not allow those companies to remain independent contractors, the people of them. If they become employees, then they will pull out and we won't have ride shares.
Okay, this is a question for all of you. We're going to talk about economic development and land use. Again, all 9 of you have the option to answer this question, 45 seconds each. You don't have to take all that time if you don't want to. Here is the question. Do you support density in certain parts of the city to help meet West Hollywood's housing needs? The question again, do you support increasing density in certain parts of West Hollywood to help meet West Hollywood's housing needs? 45 seconds. We begin with Jerome Cleary.
Thank you, Robert. I'm glad you asked me this question. I do support it by case scenario. The Gateway project had a plan B that was never instituted for housing towers and stuff. I think we have to look at everything very carefully. A lot of the residents and homeowners have been displeased about what's happening with their overdevelopment. With housing, I think you have to look at each neighborhood and how it's going to be put together and take it case by case to consider. I do support it, but I'd have to look at each project. Thank you.
Marco Colantonio.
To an extent, I do. I support density in commercial districts along La Brea, near the West Hollywood Gateway. Everything should be sensible density. Our planning commission does a good job, but we should not be opposed to adding some density to some of the commercial areas in West Hollywood, the underdeveloped areas, and that density will generate economic growth and economic survival as well. Land use to me is a completely separate issue. I'm not a big fan of changing land use, unless it goes through the proper channels, planning, and then before city council.
Mark, Farhad Yusupov.
So it is a question that has to be addressed individually. Our city is small, but again, it's one of the most densest city in the country. So we have to look at the case by case basis. A feedback from residents is important. We need to look whether a project improves the neighborhood, whether it adds to the, it's beneficial to the residents of the city. So when a project is approved by the residents because it adds as a benefit to the city as a whole, also that's when it can be allowed easily. But if it's ruining the neighborhood character, and if it's a future eyesore or something that's going to create a nightmare for residents around it, then we have to look at it closely whether it's a good match for that location. So that's why case by case is very important.
Thank you. Do you support increasing density in certain parts of West Hollywood in order to meet the city's housing needs? We continue to get answers from our candidates. Up next, Larry Block.
I support increasing density along the perimeters and the commercial corridors, where we should be able to build, where along the perimeters and in the commercial corridors. I believe in our general plan and that we're very dense, and the general plan is general. But a lot of these rules with regards to density, they come from state. They come from state law. They come from different bills that are proposed by the state that we have to increase our RHNA numbers and continue to build. So we don't always have a choice as far as the RHNA goals. So City Council recently, we were asked to build 4,000 units over the next 10 years, and the Council is petitioning against those numbers because we've advanced our affordable housing past that number.
John Erickson.
Yes, I believe in smart growth policies. As a planning commissioner myself, I look at each one of these items on a case-by-case basis, but we have to admit to a few things here. We're in an affordability housing crisis. We're in a housing crisis in general, and we need to do and make sure that the city is taking a proactive response to not only meet our RHNA numbers. I think our city would be well spent on building and working to build more housing than fighting it in the courts and wasting more taxpayer dollars that way. But ultimately what we need to do is we need to make sure we're working with our neighborhoods, our community members, and our businesses to not only support housing and support looking at how we are building more, not only along commercial corridors, but in areas by making sure our community is involved from the beginning all the way to the end.
Noemi Torres.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, it's definitely something that I've been looking at. West Hollywood is so dense, but we also have to make sure that we increase the amount of housing that we have. So it will be case by case, whether it be the commercial area or some locations that could actually have the opportunity to be developed. Responsible development is super important, making sure that we're able to use the square footage that is being done to make sure that is touching a lot more people than just 12 or 14 individuals in the city. So I would love to see some zoning reform, but also case by case in some locations.
John Heilman.
Thank you. The city is already a very dense city, but we have an obligation from the state to do our fair share to provide for the housing needs of the future. I think there are a number of things that people have already spoken about allowing more mixed use along our commercial corridors, which will help our housing. But I think we also need to be looking at allowing micro units in certain residential neighborhoods and not counting that towards the density. I think there are a few residential neighborhoods where we could easily move them from an R2 to possibly an R2.5, if you will, where people wouldn't even notice the additional units because they would be consistent with the development pattern that already exists.
Seppi Shine.
I support responsible development. I support building more affordable housing that's affordable for all. I support incremental increases in certain areas of the city along commercial corridors. I support more local control. We need to have our planning commission look on a case-by-case basis. I support getting community input from residents and really listening to our residents fully as to what their feelings are. West Hollywood is not one large place. We're very dense and every neighborhood is different. So that's my position on that.
And we'll finish this with John Duran.
1.9 square miles, 36,000 people. That's 18,000 people per square mile. And I can guarantee you that with about 99.99% certainty, nobody wants development happening in their neighborhood. And that is always the challenge when you get into elected office. People will say, we are all for affordable housing. We need more housing. Just don't build it on my block. Build it somewhere else. And this is the one that separates the men from the boys and the women from the girls. You have to make tough decisions as a council member and do things often that residential neighborhoods don't want in order to meet the state mandated regional housing need assessment numbers. That is the hardest thing about doing this, is to make sure that we meet our goals even when it's not popular.
Candidates, thank you so much for that. We're going to go back to questions for specific groups, and I want to thank our audience that's participating, that is asking questions. We are doing so well on time as we just hit the halfway point that we're getting a number of great questions from people who are zooming in and tuning in, and we're going to have a chance to ask you some of those questions, candidates, and we will do so randomly. This question is going to be for this group, and we'll go in this order, please. For Mark Yusupov first, Jerome Cleary second, Marco Colantonio third. Let's continue with our conversation about housing. In this case, the housing crisis, new housing. What group do you see is right now in the most critical need for housing? And how would you address that? Low income, workforce, senior, or any other group that I'm not mentioning here? Mark.
I think the most important group right now are the residents of West Hollywood who are actually struggling to make the rent payments. So yes, we do have a homelessness crisis in the region, but those people who still live in the places, but they are barely can afford them, that's the most vulnerable group that we need to help first. So that way they can keep their roofs over their head. I would say that's the most vulnerable group. And that can include the seniors, that can include workforce. So all of those people who are making barely ends meet. And then with the end of moratorium, some of the things have to become, some of the people are going to face with the large sums that they have to pay in rents. So those people need the help the first. So that's, I think, the most important group for us to help.
Mark, thank you. Jerome Cleary.
This is a great question too. I would say the first group would be the middle class, the people talking about who are working here, and also the residents who are struggling. We've had added money at different city council meetings for the rent relief fund, but I think also we should add more money. And as John Heilman mentioned before, perhaps in the new year, we might be writing checks to equal the 75% they're not paying of the 25% of the rent between October and the end of January 2021. The other group is the homeless. Can we find even temporary housing and beds for the homeless? That's super important. And also seniors who are struggling because of what's happened with COVID, trying to make sure that they can make ends meet also. I think looking at those three groups are super important. Thank you.
Marco Colantonio.
Our biggest issue, I think, and the group that's struggling most are lower income. Bear in mind, California considers lower income $63,000 or $58,000 to $63,000 a year. Most people don't realize that's low income. They're struggling to pay their rent. They're struggling to even to find housing because of not having the potential of paying their rent long term. I think we need to find ways to move some money around to increase the housing, the rental subsidies, and make sure they last throughout a year and a half, with perhaps larger grants than $1,000. We were talking about spending money, allocating money for the Metro line. I think we might want to put that on hold for a year and use some of that money to fund housing.
For this next group, and we will go in this order, Noemi Torres, Larry Block, and John Erickson, here is your question. The labor union representing hotel employees has aggressively opposed projects in West Hollywood which do not have an agreement in place with their specific unions. With all of that said, what is your view of labor's role in West Hollywood? Noemi, 45 seconds.
Thank you, Robert. I believe that it's important for us to make sure that the employees that are being employed by the hotels get their meets met, not only just their meets, but the rights, and they're being allocated efficiently. But I also want to make sure that we are employing locally, and also make sure that we're able to be taken care of. So that said, I support the labor unions and make sure that they actually are doing what they are supporting during the employment and the situation here in West Hollywood.
Larry Block.
Right. I support workers' rights, but in West Hollywood, we pay workers the highest minimum wage. If you have a good employer, you don't really have to worry about providing workers with rights and protective equipment and all the things they need. As an employer in West Hollywood for 11 years, I've had over 100 employees, and I have never had an unemployment claim up to this pandemic, and I've never had a labor board issue, not a filing up to this point. So being a good employer is the most important role in providing it for any of the any workers.
John Erickson.
I want to remind people that the city of West Hollywood did not support the fight for 15. It failed on a 3-2 vote when we, as a city of West Hollywood, did not support raising the minimum wage. But ultimately, I am a proud supporter of unions because we need to work on things to make sure workers are protected. Workers are getting rights that need it, from healthcare to wages, to making sure that we can get back safely. We need to build a coalition of working all of us together, from the business owners to those that are in a labor group to everyone, to make sure that we're building what's best for our city and community. I'm proud to be endorsed by Unite Here Local 11. I'm proud to be endorsed by many other labor unions, including the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor. I've built coalitions my entire life, and that's how we're going to do it when I'm elected, to make sure everyone has a seat at the table.
And we're going to finish with economic development and land use with a question for these three candidates. We will go in this order. You will have 45 seconds each. John Duran, John Heilman, Seppi Shine. Here's your question. Prop 15 on the statewide ballot seeks to increase property taxes paid on commercial real estate. Some estimate that the passage of Prop 15 would result in the largest property tax increase in the history of the state of California. On the other hand, local governments and schools are suffering due to the tax restrictions imposed by Proposition 13, which Proposition 15 seeks to change. So, are you voting yes or no on Prop 15, and why? 45 seconds, starting with John Duran.
I'm voting yes on Proposition 15, and this is why. This is a split roll tax initiative. It does not affect homeowners or individual residential property owners. What we're talking about here is increasing the rents for commercial real estate. Disneyland is the best example of this. Disneyland is paying property taxes at the level of 1955 when they opened and when Prop 13 originally passed. It's not fair that major property owners like Disneyland are paying taxes that were set almost 50 years ago, while our state and local governments are starving for tax dollars. We're in the middle of a COVID epidemic. Local government needs money to keep people afloat and safe, and this is a great way of obtaining it. Those commercial property owners can pass on the costs to consumers through their price setting.
John Heilman.
I also support Prop 15. The split roll proposal is not really increasing taxes, it's bringing taxes up to what they should have been all along. There are a lot of commercial property owners, as Councilmember Duran indicated, who are paying taxes based on assessment and rates that existed 20, 30, 40 years ago. That's not fair to all of us who are homeowners, who are paying based on the assessed value of our homes when we purchased them. And this is not going to affect residential property owners, individual residential property owners. It's making corporations who own lots of property pay their fair share, which they haven't been for many years.
Seppi Shine.
Yes, I support Prop 15 because it is about equity. Big businesses should pay their fair share. This will bring money into West Hollywood locally and to our schools. That's much needed. And the great thing is there's a $3 million value exemption for businesses. So small businesses will not be hit hard, and I support it.
Thank you so much. And candidates, a reminder here, and also for our audience, you may have heard a question that you said to yourself, well, I wish I would have had a chance to answer that. Remember, you do have a 2-minute closing statement. So if there's anything you're hearing that other candidates, questions that we've asked other candidates specifically and not you, you can certainly add that to your notes for your closing statements, which will come at the end of our forum. So thank you very much. We're going to move on to our final topic, audience. Before we get to your questions, again, a topic of the utmost importance these days. This is public safety and homelessness. And again, we ask these in different order so we can try to be as fair and equitable as possible with the 9 candidates. The question for all of you, you will each have 45 seconds to answer this question. Do you think the West Hollywood Sheriff's deputies do a good job of protecting and providing service for the citizens of West Hollywood? Why or why not? Question again. Do you think that the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department and their deputies are doing a good job of providing protection for the citizens of West Hollywood? Why or why not? Let's start with John Erickson.
Thanks so much for this really important question. This is a question I, as an East Sider and the only East Side candidate, think about daily when I run into our Block by Block ambassadors. When we look at our neighborhood watch groups that are getting smaller and smaller. When we look at the ways in which we need to address and make sure we're working to revamp and re-envision what public safety here in West Hollywood is supposed to look like and how we can champion progressive policies. Our Sheriff's Department are a part of our community. They have been for quite some time. Many of us will talk about the history of when we've tried to create our own police department and when it failed. But ultimately, if you know Captain Ramirez and the public safety officers who put their lives on the line for our community, we're working in coalition to get it right. We can get it right, but that means we need to work hard to do it. And I'm ready to do that on day one.
Noemi Torres.
Thank you, Robert. I think it's important to know, just like what John said, that it is something that we need to make sure that there's always room for growth for a sheriff's department to know how to address some issues. I think there is some police reform that I believe is important in order for them to get better education on when they receive a call, for example, someone that's mentally ill or is experiencing homelessness, how to do that, but also make sure that we reallocate some of the resources that we're giving to the sheriff's department as a contract per people to the public safety ambassadors and block by block, not only because the sheriff's department has the opportunity to support some calls, but there's some calls that are not able to do. So I believe that we need to re-educate and assess which sheriffs are important to have in this community and which ones we don't.
Larry Block.
Hi. I have daily interactions with the Sheriff's Department, and I want to thank them for the job that they do, but it's not enough. When it comes to homelessness, one of the major issues is our terrible contract. We used to have a contract that had night and weekend outreach, and then we went to Essentia, and now we have weekday outreach from 9 to 5, and nothing happened at night when the businesses are open. Every day I go to the store, I trip over a homeless person laying all over the street. So it's not enough. It's not a good job. We shouldn't trust the sheriff to have to deal with these issues. We need more block by block security ambassadors, and we need to redo our homeless contract to include night and weekend outreach and take this away from the sheriff department so that they can do the job that they need to do on everything else.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about protecting the citizens of West Hollywood, and we're talking specifically about those who are charged to do so, the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department. Is the Sheriff's Department of West Hollywood doing a good job? Why or why not? Seppi Shine, 45 seconds.
Thank you. This is a really important topic. Some residents are happy with the sheriffs and some are not. A lot of small businesses I hear are not happy with response times and what the sheriff is or isn't able to do. And this truly shows why we need to increase our block by block security ambassadors to patrol all of our streets. We need to increase funding for our MET teams that has been very successful in helping to get homeless people in the care they need and off the streets. Those have been successful, so let's increase those. We need to also look where we can put money into our code compliance department to take care of nonviolent disputes, neighbor disputes, so that our sheriffs can actually give the time to respond to the calls and violent calls that our businesses and small residents need.
John Duran.
Thank you, Robert. I am the only one of all these candidates that has been endorsed by both the sheriff deputies and the firefighters. And there's a great deal of irony to that, given that my day job is I'm a criminal defense lawyer. You would think I'd be the last person the sheriff deputies would endorse. But instead, having worked with them closely for 20 years, reforming the department on and on over the years, we've reached the point where we have a pretty good local police department that responds to our individual needs. You know, looking at the sheriffs as a whole countywide, there are gangster thug sheriff deputies in East LA. That's a reality. It was on the front page of the LA Times today. But that's not West Hollywood. Our 200 sworn peace officers are responsive to our captain, our leadership brass, and our city council. We should continue to work with them.
Marco Colantonio.
I think the sheriff's department, 80%, I'd give them an 80 on a test. I think we need to add some deputies to the sheriff department, which would reduce overtime and reduce the number of outsiders that are not sensitive to our community coming into West Hollywood. The average sheriff costs $250,000 a year with benefits. Adding 4 more sheriffs would make a huge difference. It's $1 million. We can find $1 million somewhere else. Sensitivity training, though, is incredibly important. I think the biggest complaint with our sheriffs is attitude. I don't think they realize sometimes as they come off with an uncaring, arrogant attitude with the community. As far as security ambassadors, we've got to review the routes and get these security ambassadors on the arteries going up and down the side streets.
Mark Farhad Yusupov.
So our residents are complaining about actually not enough police when they need it. And I think partially the problem is our police is being overwhelmed with a lot of calls that are maybe not emergency in their need. And so we need to relieve some of the duties from our local police to the block by block or mental evaluation team. We need to increase the staffing there so police can actually address the emergency cases when it's needed. And also another thing that would help is if our police station is familiar with the residents of the city. It would help if the local police knows local leaders, if they know their blocks, if they know the troublemakers, because sometimes often it's the same people. And I think that familiarity will help them also to do their work, to be more sensitive to the issues of particular neighborhoods. And once we have police officers that they are familiar with the city they're policing, that would relieve a lot of stress and also anxiousness from the residents.
Jerome.
This is a very important issue to me. We spend $20 million a year to lease our service to the Sheriff's Department. I would say yes and no. There's been some great experiences. We've had past captains that were duds. Our present captain, Ed Ramirez, is fantastic, and so is Lieutenant Bill Mulder. I think if we could expand our cops team, we could expand more deputies on foot and bike patrol and reach out to neighborhood watch groups to find out what specific crimes are happening for the tab crimes of theft, assault, and burglary, and to also look at the response time for dispatch when you call up for a patrol car, to how it's going to be deployed. And there's sometimes confusion between code enforcement and the Sheriff's Department, who's going to handle what at what time in the middle of the night. Those things are important. For homelessness, we pay someone $170,000 a year at a city hall for a homeless, and we still have a lot of homeless on the street. A big dent has not been made in this. I think it's important to really have more stronger hands-on social workers to reach out and to fix this problem, because the residents have complained about these problems to me recently. Thank you.
And we end with John Heilman.
Thank you, Robert. I thought you were going to forget me. I think overall the men and women who serve West Hollywood do an incredibly good job. There are, of course, incidents. There are going to be incidents with any police department. I agree that the efforts that need to be made should be made countywide. We really need to be leading the effort to reform our sheriff's department to make sure that we minimize unnecessary use of force, that we also address the systematic discrimination that exists not only within law enforcement, but throughout our criminal justice system. And I think West Hollywood is really poised to make those changes and really be in the leadership of reforming law enforcement countywide.
Thank you, candidates, so much. That was your last rapid fire group question. The next time you'll have a chance to all answer a specific question will be those questions that are coming from our audience, and we are just having the League of Women Voters go through that right now for us. So let's finish up with public safety and homelessness. Let's talk about homelessness. Let's give this to this group. We'll go in this order, please. Larry Block, John Erickson, Noemi Torres. Homelessness. It's a problem in LA County. It's a problem nationwide. It's a problem everywhere. We know that the real solutions are going to come with federal involvement in state and county and city governments working together. But what do you want to see West Hollywood do to address the problem of homelessness? Larry Block, we're going to start with you. 45 seconds, please.
I'd like to see West Hollywood enact an ordinance that cleans up the streets from people laying on the ground and make it illegal for people to lay sprawled out naked on the ground or sleeping on the ground overnight, an anti-loitering law. I'd like to be able to provide a place for them to go. We went through this a few years back and forth with the various opportunities to provide some sort of shelter, but it seems to come down to maybe the Willoughby warehouse by Poinsettia Park might be the only place where we can provide some services overnight for them, or some place where they can get some food or a shower. I think we need to provide some dignity to the homeless people while providing solutions at the same time. So I think the council could be as aggressive as Beverly Hills has been in removing the homeless from the streets and protecting its businesses.
John Erickson, you're up. 45 seconds, please.
We need to approach this issue, which is one of our biggest humanitarian crises right now, with care and compassion. I've oftentimes heard many people talk with quite disrespect for people experiencing homelessness, and that's someone who, like me or any of you, who could be one medical bill or a rent check that they can't pay because we don't have a job away from experiencing homelessness. This is something I think about being 35 years old and wondering, if I were to get fired, could I afford my bills, and what would happen if I couldn't live where I'm at? We need to work on increasing our wraparound services that the city already does and provides. This is not only just one issue regarding services for housing. This is about mental health. This is about addiction and recovery. This is about a whole host of intersectional issues, but we need to approach it with care and compassion and not criminalization.
Noemi.
Yes, I have been quite passionate about this issue, and I really am working hard with all the nonprofit organizations that are part of the grant programs that the West Hollywood city does. But it is an important issue about empathy and compassion, in that there's a lot of situations in which some people are saying us versus them. And it's the community. We want to make sure that we're able to provide the opportunity to say, hello, how are you? Making sure that we're able to also, in the legislation part of it, try to figure out a human services way of supporting the people that are laying on the street, and make sure that they have the opportunity to get mental health information and support.
We will go with this next question in the following order. We will start with John Heilman. Seppi Shine will go second. John Duran, you will go third. The question is, West Hollywood's been a location for many social justice marches and protests, most of which have been peaceful in the last couple of months, but they have also some resulted in property damage. How do you think West Hollywood can find the right balance between supporting freedom of expression, if you will, and protecting the people and the property of our city? John Heilman, 45 seconds, please.
I think this is a great question. And I would say that overall, the protesters who've come through West Hollywood, some of whom live here in West Hollywood, some of them don't, overall, they have been very peaceful. They've been very respectful. But there have been some who have engaged in criminal conduct, and we shouldn't tolerate that. We shouldn't tolerate that from anyone. I think we've tried to strike the appropriate balance of protecting our residents and protecting our businesses while supporting and allowing for wide open freedom of expression. Certainly, I've been part of these movements, and I think everyone here has been part of movements when we've been part of protests. And it's important that we as a city, a progressive city, embrace protests, but also try to make sure that everyone is protected, including the people who are coming here to express their opinions.
Seppi.
We need to lead on this issue by providing a solution to why the protests are happening. And I've suggested creation of a social justice task force made up of Black, Indigenous, and people of color who are residents, business owners, and in the city who can advise the city council on transformative reforms needed to dismantle systemic racism and social equity issues. That's where we start to really hit the solution. I also don't believe the city did I didn't agree with the city instituting the really early curfew. And I do agree that the majority of the peaceful protesters were peaceful. And what the sheriffs did by hitting riot gear on the ankle of a protester was absolutely unacceptable in our city.
John Duran.
Been on both sides of this. I was one of the attorneys for ACT UP during the AIDS protests in the 1980s. I've spent time in jail getting arrested as somebody involved in civil disobedience. And now I find myself on the council. I will say that I think the city's done a great job of balancing First Amendment freedoms and protections and people's right to assemble, petition their government for redress and speak freely. But we've also done a great job protecting property. We set out those dumpsters across Sunset Boulevard and Santa Monica Boulevard to allow protesters to walk through, but to keep out truckloads full of roving thugs who are only there to break windows and steal merchandise from our commercial buildings. We struck a very good balance by doing that. I agreed with the curfew. We had things getting out of control, and we did our best to protect our residents and protect our businesses.
And our last group here, Jerome Cleary, Marco Colantonio, and Mark Farhad Yusupov. This question is for you. And once we finish this, we will get to our audience questions, then our closing statements. Defund the police has become a catchphrase that means different things to many different people. West Hollywood maintains a contract, as you all know, with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to provide our local law enforcement. What changes, if any, would you like to see to that contract? Let's begin with Jerome, 45 seconds, please.
As I said before, this is an important issue to me. I've lived here since 1986, for the past 34 years. Our Sheriff's Department is a great asset. I don't think we should defund the police. I think we should enhance it by doing outreach and adding more money to the cops team, by adding more money to get the deployment of bike patrols and foot patrols in certain neighborhoods, and really attack the crime that happens, and also reach out to people to see what's going on. I think, the demonstrations are complicated because they're a lot of times not organized enough to have a list of demands that they want. I think we have to help those people. And I think it's important by not defunding the police, but enhancing the services to let the people know that the police are there to help us with public safety.
Marco.
Defund the police is an interesting term. It means a lot to many people. It doesn't mean not financing the police. I've not reviewed the contracts. I can't comment specifically on it. What I do think we need is immediate sensitivity training. There's a program called RIGHT in Chicago, which teaches patrol officers why they are actually insensitive, potential some systemic racism there. And it enables them to go out and deal better with the community. I think we need to add for sheriffs. I think we need to have monthly accountability. I think the sheriff's deputies in our community need to know that we're going to hold them accountable. They are going to be reviewed. We're not reducing the number. Law enforcement, public safety is incredibly important, but they need to be accountable. There needs to be sensitivity. There have been far too many complaints about some violent activity or responses. And about anger towards the constituents.
Marco. We'll end with Mark Farhad Yusupov, 45 seconds, Mark.
So I'm against the defunding the police. I think it's actually a badly coined term, but I am for reform and restructuring of funds that the police get. Those funds to be directed also to other services that help actually they're going to help police to do their job better. We need to boost the mental evaluation team on a city level. We need to have a non-emergency dedicated line where people can call when it's not a emergency situation where a response by social worker or a mental evaluation team is needed instead of a police. So the funds that are now given to police have to be directed to other services also that help the police. That's one thing. And also the police station here in our small city can be more familiar with our residents. They can know who are they policing, and that will make their work easier, and that will make residents feel safer because if they will know who their police are.
Thank you so much. We're going to move now, and I thank you all for participating, and I thank our audience. We have many people watching, candidates, because we have a lot of questions, and I hope that you will be out there meeting people however you can while keeping socially distant and safe to be able to address these questions. But let's start with one that has come up regarding West Hollywood and West Hollywood's identity. I'm going to put you in gallery view. This is a question for all of you. Again, you all don't have to answer if you don't want to, but let me see a show of hands after I ask the question if you want to answer it, and then we'll just hopscotch around by which hands I see first. So the question is, all right, Jerome, let me ask the question first. The question is, this audience member says they are worried, as are many people in West Hollywood, about the city losing its queer identity. And they are concerned, if you are concerned about the city losing its queer identity, and how can you try and preserve it while embracing so many different diverse people coming into West Hollywood? I see Seppi's hand. I see, okay, everybody looks like they want to answer this question. John Erickson does not. Okay, I'm going to start with Seppi, and then I'm just going to work around the room.
I think this is a really important question. The reality is a very large percentage of our community are gay men and some other LGBT, very small, a few transgender people that live here. Hopefully more in the future. I believe in doing more preservation of our historic Rainbow District so that we highlight our history, so that when the city continues to progress and people come in, they know what our history is. That's a really important one. Secondly, we need to support as much as we can our remaining gay-owned businesses. This is the hallmark of our city, and we need to do whatever we can to support our LGBT businesses.
Okay, let's move to Noemi. 30 seconds, please.
I moved here from Seattle, Washington, and I had no idea what West Hollywood was about. And I'm so passionate about it because I started being part of the community as a Women's Advisory Board member and Public Facilities Commission. And you know what? It's such a beautiful city to see all the colors and all of the inclusiveness that happens. Yes, the demographics are changing, but at the same time, I don't see there's a reason why we shouldn't actually finish up. Again, my apologies on this little pipple. But yes, I am here to be able to support and be an ally to the community. And we do need to preserve it, but we do need to also see what the demographics are looking like now and make sure that we're supporting our city. So I'm excited to be part of this, and thank you for asking that question. That's an important one.
Thank you. League of Women Voters, let's make sure we're at a 30-second time limit, please. John Heilman, you know the question. I can repeat it to you.
No, I know it. Thank you. I don't think we're going to lose our gay identity. We have 40% of our residents who are members of the LGBT community. We have great businesses that cater primarily to the LGBT community. We have lots of programming in the city. We have activities that occur in the city all the time that are focused on the LGBT community. So I don't think we have any risk of losing it, but there are things that are going to change. The LGBT community has diversified greatly in the last 20 years, and we need to be open to that, and we need to be respectful of
Okay,
everyone.
thank you. Mark, I saw your hand up as well.
Yes, I think our city is the unique city in that way. We are one of the most diverse cities that I've been to. And that's one of the reasons I actually moved from Chicago to West Hollywood, because I love the diversity that provides. I think we can, I don't think we're in danger of losing it, but we definitely need to make sure that we are preserving it, because this city can be an example to any other city, not just in our country, but in other countries as well, as a unique combination where such a diverse population with almost 50% of gay people, all minorities living together and creating this beautiful living environment in our city.
Thank you
So that
so
needs
much.
to be preserved.
Other hands that I saw up, John Duran, I saw your hand up as well.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, we need to protect and preserve our LGBT identity. I'll just say, this is what I've done. I started an AIDS monument to remember our heroes and heroines who died during the AIDS epidemic. Ribbon cutting will probably be next year. I found a permanent home for the June Mazer Lesbian Archives at the Worley Building. I have started multiple LGBT organizations here in West Hollywood, including Equality California, to fight for marriage equality. Currently with COVID, I'm working with property owners where gay bars are shutting down to make sure that the next business that opens up will also be a gay bar. It's imperative that we preserve our gay identity.
Okay, Marco, I saw your hand up.
As we assimilate, and John Heilman talks about assimilating into the community and the community changing, we need to celebrate our LGBTQ community. It's what defines us. It's what brings 1 million people a year to visit West Hollywood and fill up our hotels. I've long called for designating Boys Town, whether it's Rainbow District or Pride Square. Let's make it inclusive. Let's celebrate Pride every week, every day in West Hollywood. New York had I Love New York with an apple. We need I Love West Hollywood. Celebrating and maintaining our identity, brightening the crosswalks is going to keep us going.
Thank you, Marco. Larry?
Hi, I've been celebrating West Hollywood and celebrating the pride in our city since I opened my shop. I've been here for 35 years, and I believe in West Hollywood as the beacon of hope for gays, transgenders, lesbians from all over the world. I want to keep that and restore that. I will be very aggressive to recruit and attract national and international LGBT-owned businesses to West Hollywood. I have that experience, and we can open up new windows of opportunity. But West Hollywood is more than just a gay city. We're also a city of rock and roll on Sunset and a city of Russian immigrants.
Thank you, Larry. Again, we'll finish up with this audience question. Concerned about West Hollywood losing its queer identity. Wonder if you're concerned as well and what you're going to do about it. The last two who haven't answered this, Jerome and John, I know you both want to answer this, so we'll start with Jerome, and John, you'll bring us home.
This is a super important issue for me. We're not losing, we're gaining, even with the rainbow crosswalks we have at San Vicente, Santa Monica. There's two things I would do. I would create a National Museum of LGBT History as a tourist attraction, and I would create a West Hollywood Walk of Fame that supports and highlights the lives of LGBT community. I think it's important to do this to create things that people want to come to our city and really admire and support. I know that people look at our city, and the news crews come here all the time for quotes, even NBC News, Robert, where they want to talk to someone when something happens in the gay community. They come here. Thank you.
Okay, John Erickson.
Thank you so much. As the youngest Democrat in this race, this is something I thought about when I moved to West Hollywood from Wisconsin, from my conservative little town, to live in a city like West Hollywood that preserves and defends its LGBTQ community. That's why I'm proud to have worked at City Hall, which has championed policies, programming, and events that put the LGBTQ community first. I was there when we started the marriages because I was an intern working for people like Councilmember Abby Land, who initiated one of the first gender-neutral bathroom ordinances, and then continuing to do all the things that put our gay community first. That's what we need to do, and that's what I will do as a council member.
Okay. We're going to have one more audience question. And audience, I encourage you to reach out to these 9 candidates because you've asked us so many great questions. West Hollywood is so diverse. There's so many issues that it's impossible to answer them all. So we're going to switch gears before our closing statements and get to one final question. So let me put you guys on gallery real quick. So I can see you. Okay, look, it's West Hollywood Squares. All right. Again, you all don't have to answer this. Show of hands, please. What is the most important criteria you would use to approve or deny a proposed development project in the ever-growing city of West Hollywood? The question again, for those of you who choose to answer it, what is the most important criteria you would use to approve or deny a proposed development project in the ever-growing city of West Hollywood? We'll go Jerome, and then we'll go to Larry. Are you up or down? We'll go.
I'm up.
Okay, we'll go Jerome, and we'll just bounce around. Everybody, Jerome, we're starting with you. 30 seconds, guys, because I got to get your closing statements.
There's certain things we could do. We could really expand the design review committee when we look at projects before they even go to the planning commission. We can enhance our planning commission more by having more feedback by residents and input. We can have more environmental impact reports and traffic reports and studies before we approve something. A lot of times the residents feel disenfranchised because of this. Those three things are super important to look at projects and whether you're going to look at them case by case based on these issues. Thank you.
All right, Larry, I saw your hand.
The most important criteria for development for me is does it fit within our general plan? Is it part of our vision for the future? And is it complementary to our neighborhood and what we need to our community, in our community?
Seppi.
The effect on the quality of life for our residents.
Okay. John Erickson, did I see your hand up?
Yes. So this is an issue as a planning commissioner I hear about every day when people come to our planning meetings. It's something that we need to ensure that our community is involved in, but everyone that's a part of that community, how that's going to add to our business community if it's a mixed use commercial development with included housing to add to our and combat our affordable housing crisis. We need to work in coalition with everyone on these projects, but we also need to work in coalition and make sure we're following state law and also making sure that we're in adherence with what the future of this city should be looking like and how we get there together.
Hands, please, so I can see who else wants to potentially answer this question. We'll go Mark, John, Noemi.
So I agree with Larry Block here. This needs to be, the question should be, does it improve our community? Does it improve our city? Does it serve our city residents? And I think there are sometimes controversial projects that city residents oppose. So in that case, we need to make sure that they know what this project is about. We need to make sure that there is a proper feedback from not just from few vocal people, but the community overall. So I think with the right messaging and the right feedback, that will help the city council to make the right decisions.
Okay, John Heilman, you know the question that's from the audience. What criteria do you use to approve or deny?
Well, the problem with the question is that you can't just look at one criteria. You have to look at all of the factors that go into a development. How is it going to impact our existing residents and businesses? Does it fit in physically with our physical environment? What kind of jobs and economic development does it bring to the community? There's a reason we have a AAA bond rating. It's because we've made these difficult decisions. Is it replacing an existing use that's undesirable? So there are so many factors. You can't just say this is the only factor that you can focus on.
Okay, no, I mean, I said that you were up, right?
Yes, thank you, Robert. Definitely what John Heilman said was that it is case by case. We need to make sure that how it's going to impact each and every specific location. I would love to see an increase in affordable housing per the actual development. So I think responsible development needs to be increased and make sure that the dissemination of information that is given to the community is even more so, because there's some people that all of a sudden it's like, well, wait, there's another thing going on. So we want to make sure that the dissemination of information is out there.
John Duran, I saw your hand go up.
Balance and compatibility.
Okay. Do I have any more hands going into my gallery view? Are we all good? Okay. Candidates, first of all, thank you. Audience, thank you. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And candidates, there are a lot of issues people are concerned about in the future and in West Hollywood, and you're going to have your work cut out for you. But now I want you just to sort of take a moment, get your thoughts together, because we are going to begin with our closing statements. For your closing statements, candidates, you will each have 2 minutes to finish our forum. And again, we want to thank you so much for participating. We've covered a lot of ground this evening. We will go these closing statements in reverse order of the way your names appear on the official ballot, according to the registrar. So if we are ready to proceed, Mark Farhad Yusupov, you will have 2 minutes for your closing statement. Mark, are you ready?
Yes. So I've been resident of West Hollywood City Council, West Hollywood City for 20 years. And I live on a Norman Triangle. I am a member of my HOA. I've been in my community active for 20 years. I'm also on the Russian advisory board to the West Hollywood City Council. So I have a perfect connection to the east side of the city. And I am here, I'm running to bring a change. Our city needs new people that work with residents, new people that represent, first of all, the interest of the city residents. I'm not someone who's influenced by outside interest. My campaign is grassroots. I have experience organizing improvements in my community. Those improvements were met with opposition with but were also supported by others, and we were able to pull the community together to bring those changes. That made me, and I'm known in the community as an active member to bring those changes, and I'm hoping I can do the same on the city level. As someone who is not a professional politician, I'm not looking into this position as some kind of a stepping stone for a future career. I'm doing this to help my residents to have a better quality of life, to improve the public safety, and make our city thrive even in the future that's uncertain with the current pandemic. I think there are ways that the city can improve regardless of whatever the economic situation on a regional level is. We can be truly a progressive city, and that's why I'm running for this position, to bring our community together to move it forward to a better future.
Mark Farhad Yusupov, thank you very much. Marco Colantonio, 2 minutes for your closing statement, please.
I love West Hollywood and care deeply about our community, residents, small business owners, and workers. I'm running as a candidate for West Hollywood City Council, calling for change, independent leadership, and an end to scandals and pay to play. We need to find new, smart, and safe ways to bring back tourism, create more low-income, affordable housing prioritized for residents, and a strategic outreach program for homelessness. We need elected officials who listen to the needs of the people. We need leaders who are compassionate and care. We need empathy, not arrogance. We don't need elected officials who consider offering sex, talking sex, and marginalizing people and excusing it as business as usual in West Hollywood. We're better than that. We need our city council members to lead by example with respect, compassion, and empathy, free of scandals and obligations to special interests. We need leaders that listen to what people want and not leaders who think they are smarter than the voters who elected them. We do need to thank leaders for their past contributions and those who helped write for the articles for cityhood, but we need them to understand that that does not give them the right to reign supreme for life. We need to bring back West Hollywood and give our residents, small business owners a say in how they see their city and what they want their city to be. This is your city, not the city council's. And the city council has to remember they work for you, the people. I ask you to vote for independent and new leaders, and let's bring West Hollywood back and give the city back to the people on November 3rd. I'm Marco Colantonio, and I promise to work for you, the people, for change. Thank you.
Marco Colantonio, thank you. We continue with our closing statements with 2 minutes each. Jerome Cleary.
Thank you, Robert, and thanks to the Chamber and also the League of Women Voters for this great forum. I'm a 34-year resident, and last time I ran was 15 years ago. And in the past 15 years, residents have really complained to me, and they're tired and frustrated what's happened to our city and the direction we're going in. And even the common crimes of theft, assault, and burglary, and what we're having going on at night, people and residents feel unsafe. They want new leadership, new blood, and new voices on the council. They don't want to vote for the incumbents, one who's been there 36 years and the other one's been there for 20 years. They really want a new direction. And I can tell you that my empathy and compassion for the city runs really deep. I served 2 years on the Lesbian Gay Advisory Board. I've started to attend commissions and meetings in the late 80s, and throughout the years been a great community advocate. I was featured in the LA Weekly as one of the 8 local heroes of West Hollywood. I've worked very hard to reach out to residents to find out what they want. I'm the only residents first advocate running, and also I think it's important to address the problems that the residents want solved. They don't want to be frustrated any longer. They want new voices, they want new blood, and I would be one of the candidates that would help the city for the new direction to make things a lot better for our quality of life issues. Thank you, Jerome Cleary.
Jerome Cleary, thank you. John Duran, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you to the Chamber, and thank you to the League of Women's Voters for putting this event on tonight. I guess it was about 10 or 12 years ago, we did a multi-$100,000 study on the Sunset Strip to come up with one word that defines Sunset Boulevard. And the word was notorious. I think that is the word that would apply to my candidacy. 20 years of being on this council, I think people know me. They know my brand. They know what I stand for. This is a city that has 5% families with children, unlike all of LA County, where it's at least 50%. This is a city of adults. This is a city that loves the nightlife of Sunset Boulevard, loves the nightlife of Santa Monica Boulevard, wants it to be edgy, nonconformist, outrageous, flamboyant. That's why we all moved here. And I will fight any effort that people try to do to turn this into Irvine. And there are political forces out there that want to make West Hollywood, quote unquote, normal. Not as long as I'm around. As long as I'm around, West Hollywood will remain edgy, on the cutting edge, progressive, outrageous, flamboyant, unlike any other town in Los Angeles County, because that's our brand. That's what we fought for. That's what people have been fighting for, to keep West Hollywood's spirit and energy alive. And we'll make sure that we do that. I saved the log cabin from demolition. I created the West Hollywood Recovery Center, the nighttime shuttle, the pickup line, named in a very notorious, sexy way. Nothing wrong with that. The rainbow crosswalks are mine. The AIDS monument is mine. Item after item after item, I have made this city into something that is unlike any other place in America. And I'm very, very proud of the work that I have done to do that. I'm going to serve 4 more years because we are at a great existential threat because of COVID-19 and economic collapse. I need to make sure before I walk away in 4 years that West Hollywood continues to be on solid economic ground, so it'll be around for future generations for another 100 years. God bless West Hollywood.
John Duran, thank you. Seppi Shine, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. I have been a renter in West Hollywood for 11 years, and I love our city, which is why I'm running to be your voice on the city council. I spent the first 16 years of my life in America as an undocumented immigrant. My parents worked hard every day to contribute to our community and taught me the value of hard work and the importance of fighting for every person, not just some. Now I run 2 small businesses. I'm a business license commissioner, and I continue to fight for LGBTQ civil rights. After a combined 55 years of the same representation, we have to ask ourselves, who has benefited from the changes in our city? It certainly has not been our residents. Some will say experience matters most, but the experience that matters most is the experience of our residents. We need leaders at the table to ensure we protect our most vulnerable residents. As we work hard every day for every dollar, our rents continue to rise and our small businesses continue to close their doors because they can't compete with the irresponsible development that is destroying the fabric of our city. Developers have poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into this election, yet developer fees only represent about 1% of our city's revenue. It is time to have an advocate for the people. I am running to be an independent voice for our community, and I am not taking any money from developers. I will bring my 20 years of advocating for equality and business expertise to City Hall. I am proud to be endorsed and supported by hundreds of West Hollywood residents, the Heart of LA Democratic Club, the Miracle Mile Democratic Club, all of the local Young Dem clubs, the Federation of Labor, the Sierra Club, West Hollywood LGBTQ icons, Robin Tyler and Ivy Bottini, and Los Angeles City Council member Kevin DeLeon. I am running because I am the leader that will bring back the people's voices to City Hall, protect our most vulnerable residents, and help revitalize our economy. I am running because we all deserve to shine, and I would be honored to have your vote.
Seppi Shine, thank you. We continue with closing statements from our candidates in reverse order in which their names will appear on their ballot. That brings us to John Heilman, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the Chamber for hosting tonight's event. And thank you to the other candidates for taking the time to share your views with the public. I'm glad that the candidates, or at least some of them, have brought up my 36 years of dedicated service to this community. I'm very proud of it. I love this community. That's why I continue to serve the community. And I'm very proud of everything that we collectively have accomplished here in this city. In terms of what has benefited the residents, when you look at our community, how the property values for homeowners and condo owners have gone up, how the social services have been expanded for all of our residents. When you look at the improvements we've made over the years, including the new library, the new council chambers, expanding our parks, I think that shows what we have been able to do collectively to benefit this community. I've had a long track record here. I drafted our rent control ordinance. That's why I'm supported by the Coalition for Economic Survival, the tenants organization. I've been a long supporter of social services and affordable housing for seniors and people in need. That's why we had emergency rental assistance programs ready to be started as soon as the pandemic hit. I am very proud of what we've accomplished here, and I would really ask for your vote. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the LA County Democratic Party, the Beverly Hills West Hollywood Democratic Club, the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund, and the League of Conservation Voters, as well as a number of unions, including the City Employees Union. I thank you for your time. I thank everyone for their time tonight, and I look forward to helping our residents recover from this pandemic and our business community as well.
John Heilman, thank you. Noemi Torres, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you so much for the League of Women Voters, as well as the WeHo Chamber. Genevieve, thank you so much. Nick, thank you so much. I honestly never thought that I would be doing this, and I am so honored to be a part of this candidacy, and I'm willing to and able to make sure that our voices in the community is heard. I'm not running for me, I'm running for the community, and I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure that every single part of the city of West Hollywood is heard. I really want to make sure that we are able to keep on supporting affordable housing, and I'm really, I have seen what John Heilman has done and John Duran has done. I believe that there is an important situation happening and that we need more women at the table and more Latinas and more women of color at the table. The demographics are changing in the city of West Hollywood, and we want to make sure that we are able to work and live and play in the city of West Hollywood with the changes that have been made. With that said, we also want to make sure that we preserve what has been done. I'm a vessel to make sure that the people of West Hollywood are heard. I'm a great listener, and I am going to be leading with empathy and inclusiveness, transparency and integrity, and make sure that the developers have the responsibility and the accountability, as well as any city council member or anybody that's actually at the city council or the sheriff's department be accountable for what they do. And I am really proud and honored to be part of this race. I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to, get to work on November 3rd and beyond. So thank you so much, Robert, and thank you for the community for showing up and giving us the time to speak.
Noemi Torres, thank you. John Erickson, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thanks for moderating. Thanks to the Chamber of Commerce. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting on this very important forum. And thanks to all the viewers who are watching this, those residents that we see at city council meetings that make this city a city I'm proud to live in. I am proud to be over here on the east side as a renter and walk through my neighborhood and talk with residents every day about what we need in a council member, but what we need in a leader. This isn't just about one of us. This is about all of us working together to combat the systematic problems that we're finding ourselves facing today, from COVID-19 to the affordable housing crisis, to dealing with issues of homelessness and making sure we're caring with compassion and leadership for those individuals, but to work and make sure we're working towards the future and how West Hollywood can get there, but get there together. That's the theme of my campaign. We're in this together because ultimately that's who I've always been. I started as an intern at the city council with the city council members, worked my way up to be a council deputy to former Mayor Abby Land, worked at the city for a number of years where I met many, actually all of the fellow candidates running, not including obviously the council members, but working to make sure that this community had a voice at the table. When I left City Hall, I wanted to make sure I stepped back and came back to a city that I could give my heart and soul to. That's why I'm proud to have my community here fighting behind me, fighting for the future that we deserve, but also making sure that we have an elected champion that's going to work every single day to not only get our small businesses back on track, to make sure people are staying safe in their homes, that we combat this COVID-19 crisis and come back better than ever. I'm fighting for a people-powered campaign because ultimately that's what makes West Hollywood, a community of beautiful individuals from every walk of life who are here for a reason, for equality, for justice for all. Go to ericksonforweho.com, join the team, and I look forward to earning your vote this November.
John Erickson, thank you. Larry Block, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you to the Chamber, League of Women's Voters, Robert, and all for listening and engaging. I want to acknowledge all the challenges, all of us who stepped up against the two big Johns to move our city forward. And I'd like to thank both John Heilman and John Duran for their many years. I'm looking forward to working with anyone who's elected for the betterment of our city. My first trip to the council chamber, I was scared to turn in the speaker slip. And since then, I've grown up in front of your eyes, fighting for safer crosswalks or a new city flag that included the symbol of diversity. I knocked on a neighbor's door to start the term limit initiative to get rid of the entrenched interest and bring a healthy rotation to our local city government. My ideas included the Disability Health Fair that brings free flu shots to residents and the Green City Awards that make our city greener and more sustainable. Or masks for residents at the start of COVID. I want to bring co-op housing and give renters a shot at the American dream and to create a community of stakeholders. All of my ideas and activism is pointed at making West Hollywood a better place to live. The developers pay for the election and they have poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into the campaign of Johns. The union has its candidates too. There are 3 Johns, but only 1 Larry. I am an independent voice and my campaign is financed by residents and my own investment in this city. Our best city council is one where we have balance. We cannot afford a clique of best friends. We need independent voices with unique perspectives. I bring a small business approach to the city council that is really needed. I'm endorsed by BizFed and the Realtors Association. I bring a sense of urgency that we must have in these times. And I'm excited to serve all of you. I'm excited to rebuild our city better than ever. I promise to listen to your concerns and return your call, whether you vote for me or not. Together, we can have a city council that is resident-centric, not controlled by their special interests, and works for you. I'm not used to asking for things. I prefer to give to others, but I am asking for your vote. Let's move West Hollywood forward together. Thank you for your support, or email me at Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, at WehoTV2020.com. Thank you.
And with the closing statements concluded, candidates, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The League of Women Voters had a mute button and you were all so wonderful, we never needed to use it. So you are an example, which I hope our national leaders will follow and everyone else in the future. Thank you so much to our 9 candidates. Audience, if you're watching or if you will tune in later, keep in mind that we have 9 candidates running for 2 open seats. Election day is November 3rd. Your last day to register to vote is October 19th. If you're dropping off your ballot, there are plenty of places in West Hollywood to do so. You have to have it postmarked on or before Election day. It must be received 17 days after Election day. There are a number of places in West Hollywood and in surrounding areas to drop off your ballot. If you're doing so, if you're not going to vote in person on November 3rd, just go to nbcla.com/decision2020 to find out. And come election night, because whatever happens in West Hollywood is always exciting. This is a race that we are going to be watching very closely right here at NBC4. And with that said, I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you to the West Hollywood Chamber. Thank you to the City of West Hollywood. Thank you to the League of Women Voters behind the scenes that do such a great job, the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles. And with that said, candidates, I wish you the best of luck. And you have some really engaged residents in West Hollywood out there that are very eager to hear from you and your positions and to watch as you lead West Hollywood into the future. And for someone that has been covering West Hollywood for decades, I will be right there alongside you, watching you as well and holding you accountable. I'm Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Thanks.
Thank you,
Robert.
everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you so much, everybody. That concludes our forum.
Thanks,
Thank
Robert.
you. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.